we have to make a major transition, and this opportunity of recovery plans, as we now see developing in Europe, but also many other parts of the world, is unfortunately showing us that based on a study by Vivid Economics, less than 1% of the spending at the moment is allocated to nature-based solutions. And this is certainly a risk if we think about the future urban developments in Europe, but especially also in other parts of the world, that this is something that deserves attention at the highest level.
In the case of starfish, which has set itself the objective of regenerating the European hydrosphere for both climatic and biodiversity reasons, because when it comes to the hydrosphere, you can't separate the two, the order of magnitude for restoring the European hydrosphere is nothing less than around 500 billion in investment to be made between now and 2030. Private, public, European, national, regional and local funds to be channeled into research, but also into clean production systems, sanitation and pollution reduction. What is blended funding? It is a structuring and collaborative approach. Blended finance, in a nutshell, is the optimal strategic use of public and philanthropic funds to leverage private funds to finance sustainable development projects in developing countries. Generally, the average is to raise €1 of public funds to attract €7 of private funds. Why blended finance? Because we realise that on very important projects such as those mentioned, in terms of biodiversity or sustainable development, public or philanthropic funds are insufficient today. And on the other hand, private investors are absent because they see it as too great a risk. Why local and regional authorities? For two main reasons. The first is that they have difficulty accessing traditional funding mechanisms such as philanthropy, the major financial bodies of the United Nations, or multilateral or bilateral development banks. Why is this? Because their projects are between $5 and $75 million. Below $5 million, funding is relatively easy to obtain through decentralized cooperation, state subsidies or donations from foundations. Above $75 million, there are the classic development banks. So we're therefore faced with a paradoxical situation. While local and regional authorities have an enormous potential for combating climate change through the choice of infrastructures that fall within their remit, they cannot find the funding to do so. Indeed, this type of infrastructure, sanitation, transport, waste management and others, are typically projects that cost between $5 and $75 million, with an average capex of $20 to $30 million. To solve this paradox, 5 years ago, the R20 with Gold Standard, a standardization agency, responded to a call for tenders from the Global Green Climate Fund, which wanted to broaden its spectrum of beneficiaries to include local authorities and the private sector. The R20 with Gold Standard, we found two financial partners: an American management fund accredited with the G7, Pegasus Capital, specialized in impact investment, and BNP Paribas, which supports us through both their administrative support but also offers this financial product to their clients. The Green Global Climate Fund has granted an investment of $150 million. It's public money that bears the risk of investing in projects in case one of them runs into difficulties. Finally, the last important point in our blended finance mechanism is that not only will our investment fund reach $750 million in the coming years, but we also have a technical assistance fund managed by the IUCN and implemented by the R20, which will help these local authorities to be sure to propose what we call bankable projects.
So from this GAF project, we started to fundraise, and we were able to fundraise until now these two projects. One of them, the name is Brasilia Capital of Solar Lighting. It's like expanding the project of the photovoltaic solar project from GAF to a higher and bigger action. So the 6 million from GAF are bringing to us now around $414 million.
Thinking about introducing impact fees that would charge developers for their impact on the built environment, impact in terms of adding to services, in terms of the consumption of land, etc. Again, these impact fees are found in many places. ranging as widely as San Francisco to Sao Paulo.
Itaipu pays royalties to both governments, and this is based on the amount of energy generated. While Itaipu produces 90 million megawatt hours per year, this is equivalent to almost $500 million in royalties that are paid for the use of the water. So in the case of Paraguay, since 1984 into the close of 2020, the Paraguayan government has received over $6 billion in royalties and another $5 billion as is a system of compensation for excess energy that Paraguay doesn't need and is contracted by Electrobras. And with this system under Paraguayan law, an important percentage, 50%, is redistributed by the Ministry of Finance to subnational governments. So the 254 municipalities of Paraguay and the 17 departments of Paraguay receive contributions as a non-tax income from Itaipu and also from our other binational dam, which is with Argentina, which is called Yacyretá.